Imagine this: an 82-year-old war veteran, pushed to the ground by his HOA president over 5 backyard chickens, while his 8-year-old great-granddaughter screams in terror. But the cops she keeps calling, they all work for his grandson, the police chief. What happens next will leave you speechless. Before we begin, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss stories like this. Chief, urgent! HOA is trying to evict your grandpa. Karen Mitchell keeps calling the police. Rodriguez's text stopped me mid-sentence with the mayor. 23 missed calls from Grandpa. Karen Mitchell, our HOA president, was frantically calling every cop in town to evict an 82-year-old war veteran while I was away. Over 5 chickens. 5. She thought I was out of town, unable to protect him. She thought calling the police would give her power. Big mistake. Huge mistake. Because those cops she's desperately calling, every single one of them works for me. Hey, where are you watching from? Comment your city below. This story about how the HOA learned never to mess with my grandpa will have you cheering from New York to LA. They had no idea what hit them. The mayor was droning on about budget allocations when Rodriguez sent another text. Chief, I think Karen's working with some guys in suits. Something shady is going on. That's when I knew this wasn't just about chickens. 2 weeks ago, I'd told Rodriguez, I suspect Karen will make her move when I'm gone. If she calls the police, play along and report everything to me. See, I'd deliberately taken this assignment in San Francisco because I knew Karen would strike when she thought I couldn't protect Grandpa. I'd even sketched out a plan in my notebook, calling it Operation Chicken Justice. Every possible move Karen could make, I'd anticipated. Every dirty trick she might pull, I'd prepared for. The 45-minute drive from San Francisco usually felt like nothing, but today it might as well have been 45 hours. Let me back up 3 months. Karen Mitchell had used every dirty trick in the book to win the HOA election. She'd twisted HOA Rule 47.3, claiming it banned all poultry when it actually only prohibited more than 50 chickens. My grandpa Walter had 5 chickens in his backyard, and each one had a story. Justice, the rooster who crowed at 5 every morning, reminded him of Revi in Vietnam. Liberty, the gentle white hen, loved to be petted. Freedom, the brown hen who pecked strangers, was fiercely protective of her territory. Hope, the shy black hen, always hid behind the others. And Peace, the 2-week-old chick, was Liberty's first baby. These weren't just birds to Grandpa. During his service in Vietnam, he'd trained communication chickens. To him, they represented freedom itself. Memories of my grandmother who'd raised chickens before he shipped out in 1965. Karen had sent 3 warning letters over the past month, each one more threatening than the last. But Grandpa, being 82 and forgetful, never read them. He'd stack mail on the kitchen counter and forget about it for weeks. I tried to help him stay organized, but after Grandma died 5 years ago, he developed his own chaotic system that somehow worked for him. Well, it worked until Karen Mitchell came along. David Wilson, the HOA accountant, had started noticing irregularities in the books around the same time Karen began her crusade against the elderly residents. He'd mentioned it to me in passing at the grocery store, nervous but concerned. The local government had received complaints about Karen, but claimed they were powerless without concrete evidence. That's exactly why I had to handle this myself. But handling it myself raised questions I wrestled with constantly. Was I abusing my power by using my position to protect my grandfather? Was I crossing ethical lines by having my officers report Karen's activities to me? No, I decided after many sleepless nights. I was protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. My grandmother would have wanted me to stand up for what's right. And Grandpa deserved to live peacefully in the home he'd shared with her for 40 years. My phone rang 17 times before I finally answered. Grandpa! But there was no response. Just background shouting and what sounded like squawking chickens. My heart raced as Rodriguez's detailed report came through. Karen brought 6 people, including that fake lawyer, Bradley Kent. She's been calling us non-stop for the past hour, demanding we arrest your grandfather for violation of community standards and creating a public nuisance. We're playing along like you instructed, Chief. I glanced at my phone where I'd photographed my notebook pages outlining Operation Chicken Justice. Every move Karen made I'd anticipated weeks ago. The fake lawyer, the intimidation tactics, the repeated 911 calls, everything was proceeding exactly as I'd predicted. The mayor noticed my distraction and raised an eyebrow. "Thompson, is everything all right?" I stood up, straightening my tie. "Family emergency, sir. I need to go." He nodded understandingly. Family came first in Silverstone, even for the police chief. As I headed for the door, I grabbed my uniform from the coat rack. I'd brought it for the formal portion of the budget meeting, but now it would serve a very different purpose. The drive back to Silverstone had never felt longer. As I merged onto Highway 101, Rodriguez called with live updates. "Chief Karen just declared she has the right to seize your grandpa's property for serious violations. She's waving around some official-looking documents that are definitely forged. Bradley Kent is backing her up, spouting fake legal codes. We're documenting everything." I gripped the steering wheel tighter, my knuckles white. "Keep the act going, Rodriguez. Make sure Davis has his body camera on. Record every word, every threat, every lie." His response made my anger transform into satisfaction. "Already on it, Chief. You trained us well." Karen has no idea she's building her own case against herself. As I passed the city limits sign welcoming visitors to Silverstone, population 12,000, my phone buzzed with a video from Susan Morrison. Grandpa's neighbor was a retired teacher with sharp eyes and an even sharper sense of justice. The footage was crystal clear, showing Karen pushing Grandpa while her accomplices tried to grab the chickens. But what caught my attention was the audio. Karen's voice rang out clear as day. "If you don't hand over those chickens, I'll make sure you lose this house within a week. You have no idea who you're dealing with, old man." That's when I knew we had her. Not just for harassment, but for something much bigger. Rodriguez had mentioned men in suits. The pieces were falling into place like dominoes. This wasn't about chickens or HOA violations. This was about forcing elderly residents out of their homes for profit. But here's what Karen doesn't know. I've been recording every single call she made. Every single one. Walter was telling his great-granddaughter Emma about Justice the Rooster when Karen's entourage arrived that morning. "Back in 1968, I trained chickens for communication in Vietnam," he said, his weathered hands gently stroking Justice's red feathers. "We used them to send messages between units when radios failed. Saved a lot of lives, these birds did." 8-year-old Emma listened with wide eyes. "Peace," the baby chick nestled in her small hand. "Grandpa, why are chickens so important to you?" she asked innocently. Walter's voice softened and his eyes grew misty. "Your great-grandma raised our first chickens in 1965, right before I shipped out. Every time I hear them crow, I remember her voice calling me home for dinner. 'Walter,' she'd say, 'leave those birds alone and come eat.' But she loved them as much as I did." That's when Karen Mitchell strutted into the backyard with her 6 followers, including Bradley Kent in his cheap suit, trying to look official. The morning sun cast long shadows across the lawn, and the chickens immediately sensed danger. Justice flapped his wings aggressively, while Freedom positioned herself between the intruders and Emma. "Emma, Mr. Thompson," Karen announced in that condescending tone she'd perfected since becoming HOA president. "You are in violation of multiple homeowners association regulations, specifically regarding the keeping of livestock in a residential area. These animals must be removed immediately." Her voice carried across the fence where Susan Morrison was watering her roses, though she was actually recording everything with her phone. Walter stood up slowly, Emma clinging to his arm with Peace still chirping in her hands. "I've lived here 40 years, young lady. Long before you even knew what an HOA was. These aren't livestock, they're family pets." His voice remained steady, but I could imagine his hands trembling slightly, not from fear, but from the effort of controlling his anger. Karen's face wrined at being called young lady by someone she clearly considered beneath her. "Times change, old man. This is a respectable neighborhood now, not some farm. Hand over the chickens or face the consequences." Bradley Kent pulled out what looked like an official document, but was actually a forgery he'd probably printed that morning. "Under the authority vested in the Homeowners Association, we have the legal right to confiscate these animals immediately," he declared pompously. From her window, Susan Morrison was recording everything with the steady hand of someone who'd managed classrooms full of teenagers for 4 decades. She'd seen bullies before, and Karen Mitchell was just another bully with a fancy title. Karen ordered 2 men from her group to grab the chickens, and chaos erupted. Emma ran forward, dropping Peace safely in the coop before wrapping her arms around Freedom. "Don't touch my great Garpier's chickens," she cried. One of the men, a burly guy who looked like he spent too much time at the gym, pushed Walter when he tried to intervene. The elderly veteran stumbled backward, catching himself on the fence. Susan caught it all on camera, including Karen's satisfied smirk as she watched an 82-year-old man struggle to keep his balance. "If you don't hand over those chickens," Karen hissed, stepping closer to Walter, "I'll make sure you lose this house within a week. You think your grandson being a cop means anything? I have connections you can't imagine." Susan, still filming from her window, quietly made a phone call to someone. Though the video wouldn't catch it, she was calling her nephew at the local news station. "I won't let Karen bully Walter," she said quietly. "This has gone too far." The situation escalated when Karen pulled out her phone and dramatically dialed 911. "Yes, this is Karen Mitchell, president of the Silverstone Heights Homeowners Association. We have a disturbance at 42 Oak Street. An elderly man is causing problems and refusing to comply with lawful orders. Please send officers immediately." She spoke loudly, making sure everyone could hear, especially the neighbors who had started gathering at their property lines to watch the drama unfold. Rodriguez and Officer Davis arrived within minutes, having been dispatched to the scene as expected. Their patrol car pulled up with lights flashing, but no siren, a deliberate choice to appear official without causing unnecessary alarm. Karen's face lit up with triumph as they approached. "Perfect. Officers, you can see this man is resisting and attacking us. He pushed my associate when we tried to enforce HOA regulations." She gestured wildly at Walter, who stood protectively near his chicken coop with Emma behind him. Rodriguez pulled out his notepad, appearing to take Karen's side seriously, while actually documenting her false claims and threats. Every word she spoke was digging her hole deeper, and she had no idea. Davis's body camera was recording everything from the perfect angle, just as Marcus had instructed during their briefing 2 weeks ago. While Karen ranted about Walter's dangerous behavior and how he'd created an unsafe environment for the neighborhood, Rodriguez discreetly slipped Walter a small piece of paper. The old man's fingers trembled as he unfolded it and read, "Stay calm. Marcus has a plan. Play along." Walter read it twice, then crumpled it in his pocket. His hands were trembling, not from fear, but from the effort of suppressing a laugh. His grandson had outsmarted these fools before they even started their game, Emma whispered urgently, tugging on his sleeve. "Great-pa, is Uncle Marcus coming to save us?" Walter patted her head gently and whispered back, "He's already saving us, sweetheart. Just watch." Karen's performance grew more dramatic as the crowd of onlookers increased. "This man is a menace to our community. These chickens are disease carriers. Property values are plummeting because of him." She was playing to her audience now, hoping to win support through fear-mongering. "He pushed me," she suddenly claimed, even though she hadn't been within 10 feet of Walter. "I want him arrested for assault." Rodriguez maintained his professional facade perfectly. "Ma'am, we'll need to document everything thoroughly. Can you show us the specific HOA rules being violated?" Karen eagerly pulled out a thick binder, not realizing she was providing evidence of her fraudulent modifications to the bylaws. "Right here." Rule 47.3 clearly states no poultry allowed whatsoever. She jabbed her finger at the page triumphantly. Bradley Kent chimed in with his rehearsed legal jargon. Under Property Code, Section 1200, we have seizure authority in cases of persistent violation. Rodriguez nodded solemnly, while mentally noting that no such property code existed. Davis moved around the yard, his body camera capturing every detail, every person present, every false claim being made. The real genius of Marcus's plan was letting Karen think she was winning. Every lie she told, every threat she made, every false accusation was being recorded by multiple devices. Rodriguez's body camera, his hidden personal recorder, Susan's phone from the window, and even a security camera Marcus had installed at Grandpa's house months ago when Karen first started her harassment campaign. As the drama reached its peak, David Wilson appeared at the edge of the yard. The HOA accountant looked nervous but determined. Clutching a folder to his chest, he caught Rodriguez's eye and mouthed silently, "I have proof." This was getting bigger than just Grandpa's chickens, bigger than simple harassment. Karen, drunk on her perceived power and the presence of what she thought were sympathetic police officers, made her biggest mistake yet. She suddenly lunged forward and grabbed Peace the baby chick right from Emma's hands. The little girl's scream of distress was heartbreaking. "That's my favorite," Emma cried, tears streaming down her face. "Give her back." But as Karen held the chick triumphantly, something unexpected happened. Freedom, the brown hen who hated strangers, suddenly squawked loudly and launched herself at Karen, pecking at her phone. What falls out makes everyone gasp. Wait, is that a wire? Who's been listening to everything? I was still 45 minutes from home when Susan Morrison's video hit my phone like a thunderbolt. The footage showed Karen shoving Grandpa, but she'd already edited it to make it look like he was the aggressor. Within minutes, she'd posted it to the neighborhood social media group with the caption, "Damaris resident attacks OO president." This is what we're dealing with, neighbors. Walter Thompson assaulted me when I tried to enforce our community standards. We need immediate action. The 2,000 members of the Silverstone Heights community page immediately split into camps. Newer residents who'd bought into Karen's vision of a perfect neighborhood supported her, while longtime neighbors who knew Walter defended him vehemently. The comment section exploded with arguments, accusations, and threats from both sides. My phone rang as I navigated through traffic on Highway 101. Rodriguez's report was detailed and damning. "Chief, she's escalating fast. That wire that fell out when the chicken attacked. I need to tell you something. I planted it with FBI approval 3 weeks ago. We've been building a case." My hands tightened on the steering wheel as the pieces clicked into place. This wasn't just my operation anymore. The feds were involved, which meant Karen had stepped into something much bigger than local HOA politics. "How deep does this go?" "Rodriguez," I asked, already dreading the answer. "Deep, sir. Multi-state deep. Elderly residents being systematically forced out of their homes. The FBI has been tracking this for months." Susan Morrison wasn't backing down from Karen's intimidation either. When Karen discovered Susan had been filming from her window, she marched over and pounded on Susan's door. "Morrison, if that video sees the light of day, you'll regret it. I'll make your life a living hell. You think Walter has problems? You haven't seen anything yet." But Susan, who'd faced down 40 years of teenage attitude in her teaching career, simply opened her door and smiled calmly. "Try me, Karen. I've dealt with bullies my whole career. You're just another scared little girl throwing a tantrum." The confrontation was brief but pivotal. Karen's mask of composure slipped, revealing the desperate woman underneath who was in way over her head. David Wilson reached out privately to Susan with a bombshell revelation. "I found serious irregularities in the HOA finances." He texted her. "Karen's been moving money from the HOA account to her personal account. Thousands of dollars. I have proof." The accountant who'd initially supported Karen was having a crisis of conscience. He'd thought she was just a strict president trying to improve the neighborhood. He hadn't signed up for fraud and intimidation of elderly residents. Meanwhile, Bradley Kent was spreading his poison to anyone who'd listened at the emergency meeting Karen had called. "Property seizure means we can legally take Walter's house," he explained to confused residents, conveniently leaving out that he'd lost his law license 3 years ago for defrauding clients. Karen's inner turmoil must have been intense, though she hid it well. Later, David would tell me he overheard her muttering to herself during a break in the meeting. "Just need 60% of signatures. Goldstone will pay off all my gambling debts. 200,000? Why are my hands shaking? This is perfectly legal." It has to be. The cracks were showing in her facade, but her desperation made her more dangerous, not less. She needed this scheme to work because she had no other way out of the hole she dug for herself with her gambling addiction and failed real estate ventures. I recognized the pattern immediately as Rodriguez filled me in on the other victims. This wasn't random harassment of difficult neighbors. Mrs. Johnson had been fined huge amounts for wrong-colored roses that her late husband had planted in 1994. The roses were pink instead of red, violating a rule Karen had invented just last month. Mr. Martinez faced threats of lawsuits for fixing bikes for poor kids in his garage, which Karen claimed was an unlicensed business operation. Mr. Peterson was told his 3 therapy cats exceeded the 2-pet maximum that Karen had retroactively implemented. All elderly, all vulnerable, all with valuable property, in a neighborhood where land values had tripled in the last decade. "I need to send this video to a friend at a federal agency," I told Rodriguez over the phone while changing lanes. "Karen's not just harassing people. She's part of something bigger." My conscience pricked me again as I used my connections to protect my family. Was I abusing my position? Was I any better than Karen? Using my authority for personal gain? No, I decided firmly. I was protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. There was a crucial difference between using power to harm and using it to shield the innocent. My grandmother would have expected nothing less from me. The revelation that a mysterious real estate company called Goldstone wanted to buy up the neighborhood wasn't surprising. What shocked me was the identity of the man meeting with Karen in Susan's latest video. Rodriguez had texted me a photo, and I zoomed in while stopped at a red light. The man in the expensive suit shaking hands with Karen outside a coffee shop was Robert Goldstone himself. I'd arrested him 5 years ago for real estate fraud. He was supposed to be serving 10 years in federal prison. How was he out? Who had he paid off? And why was he back in my town? Rodriguez texted urgently. "Boss, you need to see who's in Karen's car right now." I zoomed in on the photo and nearly dropped my phone. No way. It's him, the one person I never expect. The emergency meeting at Karen's house had drawn 30 people, mostly newer residents who'd moved in during the last 2 years. Bradley stood at the front of her living room, denouncing Walter as a clear and present danger to our community standards, while Karen collected signatures on her fraudulent petition. Some residents, frightened by the edited video and Bradley's fear-mongering about property values and safety concerns, actually signed. They didn't know they were signing away their neighbors' rights and potentially their own futures. David Wilson sat in the corner, discreetly recording everything on his phone while pretending to take notes. He'd already copied crucial financial documents onto a USB drive he'd labeled Karen's Real Boss in black marker. The web of corruption was becoming clearer with each piece of information. Karen owed massive gambling debts to some very dangerous people. Bradley was being squeezed by creditors and faced potential jail time for his past crimes if he didn't cooperate. Goldstone Corp. had promised to pay everything off if they could acquire 60% of the neighborhood's properties through forced sales and intimidation. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that Goldstone Corp. was just a front. The real money came from sources that made my blood run cold. International sources that had no business operating in small-town America. When David finally got the courage to share what he'd found, the scope of the conspiracy became terrifying. This wasn't just about our neighborhood. Multiple HOAs across 3 states were being systematically infiltrated. Elderly residents were being forced out through harassment, fines, and legal manipulation. The properties were then sold to shell companies that traced back to foreign investors laundering money through American real estate. The FBI had been tracking this for months, and Karen had walked right into their net like a fly into a spider's web. But she didn't know it yet. She thought she was winning. My phone buzzed with another message from Rodriguez. Chief Karen just announced she's filing assault charges against your grandpa. She's got 30 signatures on a petition to seize his house under emergency HOA powers. She's claiming it's for the safety of the neighborhood. I pressed harder on the accelerator, the speedometer climbing past 70. Time was running out. If Karen managed to file those papers before I arrived, it would complicate everything. Legal battles could drag on for months while Grandpa suffered. The social media response to her video was explosive. It went beyond our neighborhood group. Local news pages picked it up. Other HOA groups shared it with captions like, "This is why we need strong leadership." "An elderly man attacks HOA president." The court of public opinion was split, but the real court was what mattered. And I had evidence Karen couldn't imagine. Every call she'd made to 911, every threat she'd uttered, every document she'd forged. All recorded, all documented, all waiting for the perfect moment to be revealed. Rodriguez just texted me, "Boss, you need to see who's in Karen's car right now." I zoomed in on the photo and nearly dropped my phone. No way. It's him, the one person I never expected. I pulled into Grandpa's driveway to find him sitting at the kitchen table with Emma, both looking smaller than I'd ever seen them. Peace. The baby chick was nestled in Emma's lap, chirping softly. "Uncle Marcus." Emma jumped up and ran to me. "That mean lady tried to take all our chickens." She pushed Great-Grandpa. I knelt down to her level while my blood boiled at the thought of Karen traumatizing an 8-year-old. "I know, sweetheart, but I'm here now, and nobody's taking anything from us." Grandpa's voice cracked as he spoke. "Marcus, she said she's going to take the house where your grandma and I raised your father, where she planted those rose bushes out front, where we spent 40 years building memories." His eyes glistened with unshed tears, showing something I'd never seen before. Defeat. "Justice crows just like the rooster your grandma loved back in '85, he continued. "Every morning at 5, just like clockwork. It's like she's still here with me. And now that woman wants to take it all away because of some made-up rules." Emma looked up with those big brown eyes. "Uncle Marcus, you're the police boss, right? Can't you just arrest the mean lady? If only it were that simple." "It's more complicated than that, Em. But yes, I'm going to stop her. I promise." Walter reached across the table and patted my hand. "I know you will, son. You're just like your father. He always stood up for what was right." Emma chimed in with childlike faith. "I told Great-Grandpa you'd save us. I told freedom and justice and all the chickens that Uncle Marcus would fix everything." I pulled out my phone and initiated the video call I'd been planning for 2 weeks. Within minutes, 15 faces appeared on screen. "Every officer under my command. Ladies and gentlemen," I began, "Karen Mitchell has been harassing elderly residents for months now. She's assaulted my grandfather. But here's the thing. She thinks calling the police gives her power. She doesn't realize every call, every false report, every threat is being recorded. Rodriguez, tell them about the wire." Rodriguez cleared his throat. 3 weeks ago, with FBI authorization, I planted a listening device. We've been building a federal case. This isn't just about HOA violations anymore." The room went silent. This was bigger than any of us imagined. "So, here's what we're going to do." I said, "Karen thinks I went on this trip by accident. Let her think that tonight she's going to make her biggest mistake yet." I spent the next hour contacting Karen's victims. Mrs. Johnson answered immediately, voice shaking. "Marcus, thank God. That woman fined me $5,000 because my roses are pink instead of red. My Herald planted those roses for our 30th anniversary in '94. He passed last year, and now she wants me to rip them out. Her voice broke. Mrs. Johnson, you won't pay a penny. Those roses stay where Harold planted them. Mr. Martinez was next. 40 years I've been fixing bikes for neighborhood kids. Never charged the poor ones. Now she says I'm running an illegal business. She threatened to sue me for everything. Mr. Peterson's story was heartbreaking. After Linda died, the therapist said I needed companionship. The cats helped me through the darkest time. Now Karen says I can only keep 2. How do I choose? David Wilson's call was revealing. Marcus, I've been copying files for weeks. She's stealing from HOA funds. Thousands of dollars. It goes to her personal account, then to offshore gambling sites. She owes at least $200,000 to dangerous people. That's why she needs the Goldstone deal to work. His voice dropped. I found emails between her and Bradley Kent. They're planning something big tonight. Something about emergency seizure powers and immediate eviction. They think if they move fast enough, residents won't have time to fight back legally. That's when I had my moment of doubt. Was I doing the right thing? Was I any better than Karen, using my authority for personal reasons? I looked at Emma, still clutching peace, and Walter, staring at his coffee. No, this was about justice. This was about protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. Mr. Thompson, I said formally, I need you to do exactly what I say. Tonight, when Karen comes back, and she will come back, call 911. Report a break-in, trespassing, whatever feels right. Walter straightened in his chair, some fire returning to his eyes. I didn't survive Vietnam by backing down from bullies. I can handle one more battle. Emma piped up. I'll help too. I'll protect peace and make sure freedom doesn't peck anyone important. 3 generations of Thompsons, ready to stand their ground. My phone buzzed with a message from Rodriguez. Chief Karen just left her house with 8 people. 2 claimed to be process servers. They're heading your way. I looked at my watch. 1000 p.m. right on schedule. Time for the real game to begin. The doorbell rang, followed by aggressive knocking. Walter Thompson, open up. This is official HOA business. I positioned myself out of sight while Walter shuffled toward the door. Emma stayed in the kitchen with the chickens. Karen stood on the porch with her entourage, waving papers. Mr. Thompson, I have an emergency eviction notice signed by the HOA board. You have 1 hour to vacate, or we'll have you forcibly removed. Her smile was predatory. Walter's hand shook as he reached for the papers. But this is my home. I've lived here 40 years. Karen's smile widened. Not anymore. Should have gotten rid of those disease-carrying chickens when you had the chance. She turned to address the growing crowd of neighbors. Let this be a lesson to all of you. HOA rules will be followed. Walter delivered his line perfectly. I need to call my grandson. He'll know what to do. Karen laughed. Call whoever you want, even if he is some cop. He's 45 minutes away in San Francisco. By the time he gets here, you'll be gone. She had no idea I was standing 10 FT away. Walter dialed 911 with shaking fingers. Hello. Someone's trying to break into my house. They're threatening me. Please send help. Aaron's face lit up with cruel delight. Perfect. Call the police. They'll help us remove you faster. Within 3 minutes, 5 patrol cars arrived, lights flashing. Karen grinned wider. Excellent. Officers, this man is trespassing on HOA property. Remove him immediately. That's when I stepped out in full uniform. Hello, Miss Mitchell. I'm Police Chief Marcus Thompson. I understand you're trying to evict my grandfather from his home of 40 years. The color drained from Karen's face. You're the police chief, but you were in San Francisco. I smiled coldly. Was I? Or did I want you to think that? You've been so focused on calling the police, you never bothered finding out who runs the police. Rodriguez and Davis flanked me. Every officer you've called, every false report, every threat. We've documented it all. Karen's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. Behind her, her 8 accomplices began backing away. Bradley Kent tried to run, but found Officer Patterson blocking his path. Mr. Kent, I believe we need to verify your credentials as a lawyer. Karen's shock transformed into rage. You set me up. This is entrapment. I'll sue you for everything." But I could see fear creeping into her eyes. She was realizing how badly she'd miscalculated. Then she did something unexpected. She smiled that creepy smile from when she won the HOA election. "You think you've won, Marcus?" she whispered, leaning close. "Check your grandpa's mailbox right now." My blood ran cold. What had she done? What was waiting in that mailbox? As I turned toward it, Karen's smile grew wider. "That's right. While you were playing, cop, I was playing for keeps. Go ahead, open it. See what happens when you cross me." The night suddenly felt colder. The victory I thought was assured now hanging in the balance. What trap had she set? What was her final move? My hands trembled as I opened the mailbox. Inside were photos of Walter's house, marked with red X's and a note. "Sign over the house or lose everything until midnight. This is bigger than just me." The photos were recent, taken within hours. While I'd been planning, Karen had been documenting our home like a target. I pocketed the evidence. Threatening a police officer's family? That's a federal offense. But her smile never wavered. She knew something I didn't. And that terrified me more than any direct threat could. The next morning dawned gray and overcast, matching the mood of the 200 residents who packed into the community center. The room buzzed with tension. Some clutched phones showing the edited video, ready to demand justice against dangerous Walter Thompson. Longtime residents sat with crossed arms, recognizing a power grab when they saw one. Karen stood at the podium. Bradley Kent, conspicuously absent, currently in our holding cells. But Karen seemed more confident than ever. "Good morning, neighbors," she began with false sweetness. "Yesterday's events were disturbing. An elderly resident attacking your HOA president isn't something we expected, but we're handling it." The edited video played behind her. Gasps rippled through the crowd. "This is why we need strong leadership," she continued. "Why we must enforce rules strictly for everyone's safety." I stood up from the back row. "I have questions about your presentation, Miss Mitchell." The room turned. The police chief challenging the HOA president was better than reality TV. First question: can you explain why 15 elderly residents were fined excessive amounts in 2 months? All for violations that didn't exist until you created them. Karen's smile faltered. Residents were notified of rule changes. Not my fault if they ignored them. I projected evidence on the wall. Second question: where did $75,000 in fines go? According to bank statements, it's not in community funds. Murmurs grew louder. Karen flushed red. Money is for community improvements, signs, landscaping, administrative costs. I pressed on. No improvements made, no signs ordered, no landscaping contracts. Where's the money, Karen? Susan Morrison stood, connecting her laptop to the projector. Everyone needs to see this. The video showed Karen meeting Goldstone Corp representatives, shaking hands. Audio was muffled, but clear. 60% of properties, and we'll make your problems disappear. The reaction was explosive. People shouted questions. Karen raised hands for silence. Out of context, I discussed potential improvements. Goldstone is legitimate, but damage was done. Mrs. Johnson stood slowly. My husband planted those roses 30 years ago. Pink roses for our anniversary. He died last year. Now Karen wants $5,000 because they're not red. This is cruelty. The crowd's sympathy shifted. These were their neighbors. Mr. Martinez leaned on his cane. "I've fixed bikes since 1980. Never charged poor kids. Now she threatens to sue me." Mr. Peterson spoke quietly. "My wife died. Therapist said cats would help. Now I must choose which to give away." A young woman stood, tears flowing. "Mr. Martinez taught me to ride when I was 5. Now he's teaching my daughter. Will we let this woman destroy what makes our neighborhood special?" Emma's small voice piped up. "The chickens don't hurt anyone. Peace is just a baby." An elderly man stood slowly. "We've been silent too long. Thought compliance meant safety, but bullies don't stop. They demand more." David Wilson stood, holding a USB drive. "I'm the HOA accountant. I can't stay silent." Karen's been stealing, transferring funds to personal accounts. Evidence is here. He plugged it in with trembling hands. 75,000 in fines, 45,000 to Karen's account, then to gambling sites. The room erupted. Karen smiled. David's a disgruntled employee being terminated. Don't trust him, but David produced another USB labeled Karen's Real Boss. 3 months of emails between Karen and Goldstone. They're forcing out elderly residents for profit. Karen gets percentages. The emails were damning. Problem residents needing to be dealt with. A target list with Walter Thompson at top. Phase 1 almost complete. Once we have Thompson's property, others fall in line. The signature shocked me. Robert Goldstone, CEO, the man I'd arrested 5 years ago. How was Goldstone out of prison? I asked aloud. A man in FBI jacket stood. Agent Miller, we've monitored Goldstone since early release. Thank you for gathering evidence. We've been waiting. This was federal now. Karen pelled. I want a lawyer. Miller nodded. You'll need one. Goldstone isn't just buying houses. They're washing money through real estate. 3 states, 15 HOAs, hundreds of victims. You're in the middle. More agents entered. The meeting dissolved into chaos. Some tried leaving, but agents needed statements. Others demanded answers about fines, homes, futures. Karen sat heavily, plans crumbling, but she still smiled at me. You have no idea what you've started, she mouthed. Her phone buzzed constantly. One name repeated. Vulov, Russian. This wasn't just money laundering, but foreign interest buying American neighborhoods. David pulled out one final USB. This has everything. International connections, wire transfers, the whole network. When he plugged it in, the screen showed a web of transactions spanning 12 states. At the center was Dmitry Vulov, with organized crime tied. Our quiet neighborhood had become a battleground in something much larger. Karen wasn't just corrupt. She was a small player in an international conspiracy. The FBI had been watching, waiting for someone like her to make a mistake, and she'd made a big one. This goes deeper than any of you realize, Miller said. Multiple HOAs, hundreds of millions in laundered money, foreign actors buying American real estate through intimidation and fraud. The room sat in stunned silence. We thought this was about chickens and petty HOA politics. Instead, we'd stumbled into an international criminal operation. Karen's phone rang. The screen showed Vulov. She stared at it, terror, replacing her earlier confidence. Don't answer that, Miller warned. But Karen's hands moved on their own. She had to answer. We all watched as she lifted the phone to her ear, her face going white as she listened to the voice on the other end. Then I saw it. David Wilson pulled out one final item, another USB drive. This one labeled simply, Karen's Real Boss. When he plugged it in, everyone held their breath. Oh my God, this goes deeper than just our neighborhood. Karen answered Volov's call with shaking hands, speaking rapid Russian. Even without understanding, everyone heard the anger. Her responses grew frantic, pleading. When she hung up, she'd aged 10 years. You need to let me go, she whispered. Now, if I'm not at the office in 30 minutes, things get bad for everyone. Miller shook his head. You're going into protective custody. Volkov's reach doesn't extend there, but Karen had one card left to play. Think Marcus Thompson is a hero? She scrolled through photos on her phone. Your police chief takes bribes. Look, she projected images. Me accepting envelopes, meeting suspicious individuals, clandestine exchanges. The crowd looked at me with doubt. Even my officers seemed uncertain. This was her nuclear option. You hired someone to follow me 2 months, I said calmly. This is the best dirt you found. I showed video footage. Let me provide context. The first showed the full interaction. A man approaching me. Yes, but audio revealed truth. Chief Thompson, I can't thank you enough. Emily talks about you daily. She drew this. The envelope contained a child's drawing. Tom Morrison. Last year, his daughter Emily fell through ice at Miller's Pond. I pulled her out. I held up the drawing. Stick figure cop with cape saying my hero in crayon. The room's mood shifted. Each suspicious meeting had innocent explanations. Parents from Police Athletic League. Bribes were thank you cards, drawings, school invitations. Karen's evidence had backfired spectacularly. She screamed, "I want my lawyer! This is harassment, entrapment." She appealed to the crowd. "They're railroading me because I tried improving this neighborhood. Because I stood up to the establishment." But her words rang hollow. Evidence was overwhelming. Detective Morrison entered. Karen's face lit up. "Finally, Detective, arrest these people." Morrison shook his head. "I'm arresting you, Karen Mitchell." He listed charges: embezzlement, fraud, forgery, money laundering, conspiracy, racketeering. Each charge carried serious federal time. "You don't understand," Karen screamed. "I had no choice. Vulov would kill me if I didn't deliver properties. They're coming for all of you." She looked wildly for escape. "This doesn't end with me. This is just beginning." In desperation, Karen tried running. She twisted for Morrison, shoving past residents. But she didn't see Freedom, Walter's protective hen, who'd wandered into the center. Karen tripped over the chicken, sprawling face first. The room erupted in nervous laughter as Freedom stood over her, clucking indignantly. The woman who terrorized elderly residents over chickens was literally brought down by one. Emma scooped up Freedom. "Good girl! You stopped the bad lady." Walter placed a hand on Emma's shoulder. "Just like your great-grandma's chickens, they always knew troublemakers." The moment of levity broke tension, but serious business continued. Miller coordinated with teams across states. "We're executing warrants on all Goldstone properties simultaneously. This is our break." But Karen wasn't done. As officers prepared to escort her, she started laughing. Not nervous laughter, but something unsettling. "You idiots, you have no idea what you've started. They're coming for all of you. Volkov has people everywhere. Banks, schools, police departments. You think you've won? This is just beginning." Her words chilled the room. Even facing prison, she knew something we didn't. What had we stumbled into? How deep did this go? Who else was compromised? As they led her away, she kept shouting, 48 hours. You have 48 hours before they come. They'll burn this neighborhood down before letting you win." Miller tried, reassuring everyone. But I saw his concern. Karen might be desperate, but also might be truthful. We'd won this battle, but war wasn't over. As chaos erupted with residents demanding answers, I noticed something chilling. David Wilson was backing toward the exit, pale and sweaty. When our eyes met, I saw guilt and fear. He wasn't just a whistleblower. He was deeper involved than he'd admitted. Now he was running. "Stop him!" I shouted, but too late. David bolted through the emergency exit. 2 agents pursued, but he had a head start. What did he know that made him run? Was he another of Volkov's assets? The room exploded with questions, fears, accusations. Some residents demanded police protection. Others wanted to know if their homes were safe. A few talked about selling and leaving town. Fear was spreading like wildfire. This was exactly what Karen had wanted. Chaos, distrust, community breakdown. Even arrested, she was winning. Emma tugged my sleeve. "Uncle Marcus, is the bad man really coming?" I knelt down. "No, sweetheart. We're safe. The FBI is protecting us." But even as I said it, I wondered if it was true. Volkov's organization had infiltrated HOAs across multiple states. They had resources we couldn't imagine. Karen's warnings might not be empty threats. Miller gathered key witnesses while his team processed evidence. "We need statements from everyone." This is bigger than we thought. The emails on David's USB revealed a network spanning the country. Elderly communities targeted systematically. Properties acquired through intimidation, then flipped to wash dirty money. Our small neighborhood had accidentally exposed an international crime syndicate. We'd pulled a thread that unraveled something massive. And now they knew we existed. They knew who had interfered with their operation. Karen's final warning echoed, 48 hours. The clock was ticking. Whatever Volov planned, it would come soon. We'd won today's battle by exposing Karen. But we'd also painted targets on ourselves. The real test was coming. The crowd slowly dispersed, everyone nervous, looking over shoulders. The celebration of defeating Karen had turned into fear of what came next. As I helped Walter and Emma to the car, I couldn't shake the feeling we'd awakened something dangerous. But just as the cops are taking Karen away, she starts laughing. Not crying, laughing. "You idiots!" she screams. "You have no idea what you've just started. They're coming for all of you." "Who's they?" Heron's warning about they became clear within 24 hours. Volkov's people, Russian mafia, who'd been using Goldstone Corp to launder money through American real estate. But FBI was ready. Miller had anticipated this, turning our neighborhood into a trap. When 3 black SUVs rolled down Oak Street at 2:00 a.m., federal agents were waiting. The confrontation was brief but decisive. Volkov's enforcers, expecting easy targets, found themselves surrounded by FBI SWAT team. Our quiet neighborhood became a federal crime scene overnight. But we were safe. The threat Karen had screamed about was neutralized before it could materialize. Sometimes the good guys actually do win. Months later, Karen Mitchell stood before Judge Harrison in federal court. Gone was the suburban HOA president persona. In its orange replacement, we saw who she really was. A desperate gambler who'd sold out her neighbors to pay debts. The courtroom was packed with her victims, all wanting to see justice served. Karen Mitchell, the judge, intoned. "You're convicted of embezzlement, fraud, conspiracy, money laundering, and racketeering. You terrorized elderly residents, stole their money, and attempted to steal their homes." Karen stood silently, defeated. "I sentence you to 8 years federal prison, 3 years supervised release and restitution of $500,000. But the judge wasn't done. "You'll serve your time at Coleman Federal Correctional Complex. Your work assignment, the agricultural program, specifically the poultry unit." The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The woman who'd tried evicting Walter over 5 chickens would spend 8 years taking care of them. Bradley Kent testified against Karen for a reduced sentence. 300 hours community service at a legal aid clinic, helping elderly residents fight HOA abuse. Goldstone Corp was dismantled, its assets frozen. Robert Goldstone heading back to prison for 20 years. Volkov's American operation collapsed like dominoes. Hundreds of elderly homeowners across 12 states kept their homes. Our little neighborhood fight had triggered a nationwide victory against organized crime. Back in Silverstone Heights, life transformed. Susan Morrison was elected HOA president with 95% support. Her first act, eliminating every ridiculous rule Karen had created. The new bylaws were simple. Be good neighbors. Help each other. Mind your own business. Chickens were specifically protected up to 10 per household. Walter became a local hero. News stations interviewed him with his chickens. The story going viral. "Sometimes you just got to stand your ground," he told reporters while justice perched on his shoulder. "These birds represent freedom. My wife knew that. Now everyone does." Months after the trial, Walter received a letter from federal prison. Karen's handwriting, but somehow different. "Mr. Thompson, I'm writing from the prison farm. They assigned me to the chicken coop. At first I hated it, but these birds are actually amazing. There's one rooster here that reminds me of your justice. He's tough but fair. I named him Walter. I'm sorry for everything. The chickens are teaching me patience. Maybe that's what I needed all along. Sincerely, Karen Mitchell." Attached was a photo. Karen in prison clothes surrounded by chickens, actually smiling. Not her fake HOA president smile, but something genuine. Walter showed me the letter. "Should I write back?" he asked. I thought about it. "That's your choice, Grandpa, but forgiveness is powerful." He nodded slowly. "Your grandmother would have forgiven her. She always said, 'Hurt people, hurt people.'" A week later, he sent a reply with chicken care tips and a photo of our 5 birds. It was the beginning of an unexpected correspondence. The woman who tried destroying him became his prison pen pal, bonding over poultry. Life has strange twists sometimes. Emma became TikTok famous with her video series Justice for Chickens. She named the new babies after Karen's crimes. Embezzle the rooster, fraud the white hen, conspiracy the speckled one, racketeer the black hen, and little redemption the gentlest chick. The videos got millions of views. Kids across America learned about standing up to bullies through the story of an 8-year-old girl who protected her great-grandpa's chickens. Emma donated the ad revenue to legal aid organizations helping elderly residents fight HOA abuse. At 8 years old, she was already changing the world. Marcus, I got promoted to Deputy Director of California State Police. The Silverstone Heights case had revealed HOA corruption throughout the state. My new job, creating a task force to protect elderly residents from predatory HOAs. We'd already helped 300 families keep their homes. Rodriguez took over as Silverstone Police Chief. His first directive, community policing that actually served the community. No more automatic support for HOA complaints. Every situation evaluated fairly. The balance of power had shifted back to residents. The neighborhood threw a massive party 1 year after Karen's arrest. Mrs. Johnson's pink roses bloomed beautifully, now protected by the new HOA bylaws. Mr. Martinez had fixed over 200 bikes with official HOA support for his charity work. Mr. Peterson's 3 cats lounged in his yard, completely legal. Everyone brought food, sharing stories and laughter. Walter gave a speech that brought tears. Mary, my wife, always said, "Neighborhoods are about people, not rules. About helping, not controlling." Today, she'd be proud. He raised his glass to freedom, to chickens, and to standing up for what's right. During the party, a 6-year-old boy approached me. "I want to be a police officer like you, to protect grandmas and grandpas." His words hit deep. This was why we'd fought. For the next generation, to grow up in communities built on respect, not fear. Study hard, I told him. Help others. Stand up to bullies. That's how you become a real police officer. He ran off to play with the chickens. And I saw myself at that age learning values from my grandparents that shaped who I'd become. As sunset painted the sky orange, 10 chickens roamed freely through the party. Freedom chased racketeer while justice supervised from his perch. Children fed them scraps while elderly residents shared stories of the Great Chicken War. The local news filmed it all. Another positive story about communities coming together. Our property values hadn't plummeted as Karen predicted. They'd increased. Turns out, people want to live in neighborhoods where neighbors protect each other, where character matters more than conformity. Who knew? Rodriguez clinked his beer against mine. Remember when she called the police 47 times? We laughed. Those calls had been her downfall, each one more evidence of harassment. Best part, he added, she never figured out we were recording everything until that final night. Sometimes justice comes from unexpected places. Sometimes it comes from 5 chickens and an 82-year-old veteran who refused to back down. Sometimes the good guys really do win. And sometimes, just sometimes, even the bad guys find redemption in a prison chicken coop. As parties go, this was perfect. Not because everything was pristine and regulated, but because it was real, messy, and full of love. Just how neighborhoods should be. And that's how HOA corruption met its match in 5 chickens and a grandfather who wouldn't quit. Got your own HOA horror story? Drop it in the comments below. Like and share if justice served tastes as sweet to you as it does to me. This is just part 1 of the Marcus HOA series. Wait till you hear what happened in Riverside Heights. Thanks for watching HOA Tragedies, where common sense takes a vacation and karma runs the show. Like, comment, and subscribe for your weekly dose of mayhem.